Hi, how you doing? Justin here. Welcome to TR-104, which is part of the transcribing course, and it's all about the pause. Very, 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 very important skill, learning how to pause when you're transcribing. Now, I strongly recommend that you practice learning and transcribing one note at a time. I've mentioned earlier as part of the spiel for this course that later on you can start learning whole licks at a time. If you recognize a whole lick or a whole phrase, you can listen to it and then you write it down and keep going. But in the early stages, you absolutely must learn to do one note at a time. And still, if I'm working on difficult stuff, John Coltrane solos or whatever, hard things for me, I'm still doing it one note at a time. It's an important skill, you know, every time. And if you're doing something hard, you revert back to it. So it's really important that you develop this skill solid. So what the idea is, you're going to be listening to the song, it's going along, and as soon as the note's played that you want to transcribe, let's say it's the first note of this solo, as soon as that first note is played, you've got to hit that pause button. And you've got to hit it before the next note starts. Because I'll say it again, the last thing you hear stays in your ear, right? So that first note plays, you've got to hit that pause, because if the second note starts ringing out and then you've paused, that second note's going to be hanging around in your ear somewhere, and you're not going to be able to figure out what the first note was. Well, you might be able to, but it's going to be a lot harder. So it's really important. You listen to that first note, and then you hit the pause button, right? Then you find that first note on the guitar, and you find it, you go, oh, it's that note, and then you write down what that is. Then you go back again and you listen to the first note and the second note, and then you pause immediately after the second note this time, right? Don't just try and go from the first note to the second note, because it'll be too short a thing, especially if it's fast, right? So go back from the same place as you started last time. You listen to the first note, second note, pause. The second note's now floating in your ear, so you find the second note. You know, sometimes it's helpful to play the first note, the second note, because you just heard it. You know, find that second note and then play it. You know, is that right? Yeah, I think I've got that. And then you write that down. Maybe you check it again. You know, play along with it. Check it. You know, da 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 da. Yeah, that was it. Okay. And then it's time for the third note. So you listen again from the same point, and you listen to 1, 2, 3 notes, and then you stop. So that pause thing is really important, especially when it gets faster. You have to learn how to pause right after that note's finished. Don't hear the whole note and then pause. Right? What you're trying to train yourself up for is hear the note, pause straight away afterwards, right? Really important, especially as it gets faster and faster. Your pausing skill needs to be better and better. Now, on the program that I use, which is Transcribe, it's the space bar for start and stop. So I hit the space bar, it starts, and then as soon as I hear the note, I hit the space bar again. It's nice and simple. It's a big control, right? You know, I can't miss it. You know, so that's one of the things I really like about that particular program, is that aspect of it, right? So you start, stop, you hear it, you pause, you write it down. Sounds really simple, doesn't it? But as you're probably going to find, when you start doing it, it's a little harder. Now, I mentioned keeping on going back from the same place. You don't have to keep going back from the start all the time. I don't recommend that, especially by the time you get to the end solo, to listen to a minute worth of solo to hear that last note. It's a little bit silly, isn't it? So what you're going to be doing each time is like a little phrase. You know, you start at the beginning of the phrase, and when you finish that phrase, because most times, or lick, you might want to call it a lick or a phrase. You know, as soon as that lick or phrase is finished, that's when you want to go, you know, set your start point to the end of that phrase and go through and, you know, do the whole of the next phrase. And then when you finish that one, you set the start point at the end of that one, you know. So that's generally how you want to be doing it. Now, I've got 2 exercises for you on the website, and they're both using the A minor pentatonic scale. The first one is really slow, right? So you're going to have no problem pausing between the notes, right? If you struggle with that one, then you might want to go back to the beginner's course, right? So you've got to hear the note and hit the pause before the next note starts. Should be very, very easy. Now, I don't even care if you get the notes right, okay? It's not about that. This exercise is not about transcribing yet. It's just about learning to pause. So hear the note, hit the pause button. Then listen through first note, second note, hit the pause button. First note, second note, third note, hit the pause, right? Get through that first one. Then attack the second one. And the second one's considerably faster and has 8th notes involved. So there are more little fast passages going on. So the reason for that is that you're going to have to get your transcribing skills on. There's no bass or drums. There's a hi-hat click I put in there just to, you know, to give you some sense of kind of rhythm with it. But it's not about the notes. I don't care about the notes. What I care about is the technique. We're going to get into the notes in the next lesson. But this first one's just about learning to pause good. and the reason for this, I could throw you just straight into transcribing, but I found through years and years of teaching this in private one-on-one lessons that all of the guys that I spent a whole lesson just working on their pausing skills, those guys accelerated through the next stage a lot faster than the ones who just went straight in. So that's why I'd recommend you spend a little bit of time on this. Don't just kind of do it once and you're good. You know, really feel confident that you can hit that note and pause it. It'll also help get you familiar with your software, which is also, that's kind of an important part of it. This is a tool. That the transcribing software that you choose is a tool that you're going to use to help you work out songs. So part of this lesson is getting familiar with the tool, learning how to set that starter point, what it's like, what the button is for start and stop, how you move it back, if there's a cycle thing you might like to experiment with, whatever, the speed function. You know, just get familiar with your software as part of this before you get going on your proper transcribing. I think that's about it. All you need for this one really is the blank tab. So there's a link to the blank tab on the web page. So you want to download that. You might want to print out a few of those because they'll be useful for the rest of the course too. So I think that's about it. I think after you've done that a little bit, we're ready to actually transcribe some stuff. Proper transcribing. You ready?